What it is, what it do, what it up. You know what it is. It's the Next Up Podcast, baby. It's Josh, aka Moses Muscle, coming at you, ready to go. We got a solo Q&A, kind of sort of Q&A. These were just questions I kind of got throughout the week last week that I wanted to address. I wanted to give some sort of like a detailed review over and just give some information on. So let's get it cracking. 1 second here. My very ghetto setup's got a little lamp that if it's not charging while I record this, it ain't gonna look right. And then we got our nice little darker camera. So let's pay the bills first. HD Muscle, Lift Fucking Heavy, naturalbodyinc.com, Chunk Long Island, code Moses to check out. Go support your boy. Realistically, it just saves y'all money. It's not it's not doing all that much for me, but it's saving y'all money. So I'll be the real one. I'll tell y'all exactly what's going on. I don't make that much money because I don't have a lot of contributions to it. I don't really have that crazy of a following. So help your boy out by helping yourself out. All right, cool. First thing, if you were to start all over again in bodybuilding, how would you train? How would you eat? How would you do cardio, etc.? Run it back. So I started bodybuilding right after I finished football. So that was 21 years old, right around 2019. And I started as like Pillsbury Doughboy, 250-pound alcoholic, pretty much. And it wasn't easy to go about that, but I did have a background in kind of dieting and understanding nutrition to a degree. I had hired a coach for a couple of years of just like summer, just someone to give me like a plan for diet while I did my own training, um, obviously for football. And it worked well. So I had like a pretty good general idea. When I decided to go all in on bodybuilding, I hired that same guy again. But what I would do differently is I would figure out something that worked better for me. So I had an idea of what nutrition was like. I knew what my fitness style was. I knew how Chronometer worked. I don't even know if it was out yet, but like I understood how to count macros. I was just lazy with it. So what I would have done, and this would have really come to light after watching a video I highly recommend a lot of you to watch, which is the Seth Rollins Chicken Rice Motherfuckers video, where I learned a lot about just like the monotony of bodybuilding. So I would go back in time and I would say, hey, I'm going to find a diet that works very well for me, which would be chicken and rice. I would weigh it out. I cook it the same way every day or the same way every week, wherever I had to prep it. So I was working a job at that point that wasn't like in a gym. I was working for Enterprise, and I would just say, all right, we're going to have, I was doing ounces. I would say 6 ounces of chicken. I was doing a cup of rice. So I would do like, hey, I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to have 2 to 3 slices of bread. I didn't Sourdough wasn't as popular as it is now, so we'll just say bread. Um, Probably like Pepperidge Farms butter bread or something like that. 2 slices, let's say, is 20 grams of carbs. I'd have 20 grams of carbs per slice, so I'd have 2 slices. I'd have 2 whole eggs, and I'd have, I'm using rough numbers here, 300 grams of egg whites. Get myself around that 50 grams of protein with 40 grams of carbs or 60 grams of carbs, depending on if it was 2 or 3. Chicken and rice, 6 ounces of chicken, gonna come out to like 42 grams of protein. 4 ounces or a cup of white rice, we're gonna say is 50 grams of carbs. I would have that 4 times in a row. And my last meal at night, I always had like this thing for protein pancakes at that age. So it was normally oats, whey, egg whites, almond milk, sugar-free Jello pudding mix, a little bit of baking powder, blend that up and make them into like pancakes or waffles or whatever. I could actually find pictures of them. And depending on how much that would actually come out to, like calorie wise, is how I would base my diet. I'd run that every day, and I'd have a baseline of cardio of, let's say, 4 times a week, 25 minutes. And I would just run that. consistently without fail. I literally just use this coffee cup as a cup. Um, so it's not like there's actually coffee in there. It's just water. But I would turn around, I would run that consistently. I would have my cardio at, 4 times a week, 25 minutes, list cardio, maybe walking on an incline treadmill at night. Because I was not really into waking up early in the morning at that point. So I would like to make that swap if I could. And then I would just pretty much run it just like that. Training wise, that's the hard one. I think personally, honestly, I would run like a bro split just because that's kind of what I was doing at the time. I was doing a DC training, but like not well. I have a tendency to go over the top with things, and that's definitely something I was victim of. This is what like the waffles would look like for reference. I hope that focused. Um, so like I had a tendency to just like go way over the top shit. So like, we're gonna do a DC. The whole idea behind DC was like get stronger and go hard. So like I'm gonna do rest bar sets. I'm gonna have my boy help me with a force negative, which would just be like he lifts the weight and I just control it down, things like that. So I think I would follow more like a bro split, high volume type of training at that point because I had the time and I would have been able to recover a lot better because I was able to. How my job kind of worked was I would have to go in for 7:30. I would wake up at like 6:30, 6:35, start prepping meals and stuff like that, take a shower. And then my job was 15 minutes. I work until 6:30. The gym was literally around the block and it closed at 9. So like I could have trained for an hour and a half, high volume, 1 to 2 body parts, came home, did my cardio and called it. Or I could have woke up 25 minutes earlier and done my cardio then. Either of those would have worked. But that's what I would have done 100%. I would not have started gear at this point. I would have tried to just cut down to get absolutely disgustingly peeled. Like I said, I was 250, but I was Pillsbury Doughboy. If I wanted to get like really, really, really lean, like the stage weight at that point probably would have been like 165, 170. Like complete honest. Um, so if I could have gotten myself down to like, 180, um, and then from there, like hey, I'm going to start going back up. I'm going to increase my food. I would just very, very simply do this. If I was having 2 slices of bread in the morning, I would have added 1 slice of bread. If I was having, my pre-workout meal and my post-workout meal was the oats, I would add, let's say I was at 50 grams of oats, I would add 25 grams of oats to that meal. I would add half a cup of white rice to the pre-workout meal. And I would just do shit like that. Like I know in this diet, hypothetical diet, whatever, I don't have a lot of fats. I don't think I was even thinking like that at this point. Maybe I'd have like avocado every once in a while. Or maybe I'd have like knowing what I know now, maybe I'd have some nut butter in that last meal, just like pre-bed. But like generally, I would 100% be doing it in like half cup of rice in the pre-workout meal, you one and a half the portion of the oats in the last meal. So if it was at 50, now it's at 75. If it was at 100, now it's at 150. Just something stupid simple like that. And then as I stalled out, I would add another half cup of rice to the meal before to the pre-workout meal, and another half cup of rice in the meal before that, or another slice of bread. And I would do it in a clockwise approach to try and work my food up to a really high point while putting on as much tissue as possible. And then I would also turn around and now, again, knowing what I know now, I would run mini cuts. I would turn around and push for, 12 to 16 weeks. And I'd probably increase that food a little bit more dramatically if I planned on doing, mini cuts after 12 to 16 weeks. So I would turn around, push up probably 30, 40 pounds in 12 to 16 weeks. Assess where I was at, and then do like a 6 week mini cut where I drop food pretty hard and increase cardio relatively aggressively. Right. and just try and get in and out of the diet as fast as possible. So I would go back down to that original baseline of the two slices of bread, the two or three whole eggs, however many I said, the 250 egg whites, the 6 ounces of chicken and 1 cup of white rice and four meals, and then the 50 grams of oats with the 50 grams of whey and the egg whites. And I would just go back to that as my diet. And that would almost be like my starting point of the diet every time. And I just increase cardio from there, increase steps. Is that a perfect approach? No, but that's what I know for me would have worked at that time because I was very, very routine oriented. Um, to the degree that I would wake up in the morning, I'd do exactly what I was going to do. I would go to work, I would turn around, I'd eat my meals at the same time because I had a structured system around me. It wasn't my own structure. It wasn't me making decisions for myself. My job dictated my schedule. So it's very easy for me to just turn around and follow what the job said and understand that that was what I had to do. So that's exactly how I would do it. Over time, I would probably progress to a push-pull legs or a I don't think I do upper lower at any point, because my knee was not handling that. I was training legs once a week at this point, and sometimes not training legs if my knee couldn't handle it. So I think I would probably do a push pull legs next. Um, and then I probably would have hired a coach, to be honest with you. I would have gotten fed up very quickly with having to deal with all that crap. And I definitely would not have hired somebody who, like, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have hired Kuba at that point because generally Cuba had, 6 different protein options on my rest day. I wouldn't have been able to deal with that. That would have been way too much preparation. I would have had things going bad on like a very, very consistent basis. So no, I would not have done that. I would have been chicken and rice type of coach. Um, Told the coach that I only eat chicken and rice or chicken and sirloin or chicken and I think at the time I was still getting this like 5 pound bag of 90 10 ground beef from this like Whole Food place that was like right by my house. Not a Whole Food place, like they're a distributor for restaurants pretty much. So like I get 90 10 sirloin, like 15 pounds of the shit, and I can just put it in my freezer and like defrost it and be good to go. So I would definitely do that. And I would do chicken. I would probably do the eggs and the egg whites and the sourdough because I wasn't having problems digesting that. And I would do the oats and I would run that just consistently. That's how I would do it if I were to start all over again. Now, into the next part, which was if you were to start on PEDs for the first time, what would you do first? And what did I do is a better question. So I started on 500 mgs of test as my first jab into my left quad in the parking lot of the gym. And my leg blew the fuck up, swelled like crazy. I like couldn't walk for 2 weeks. It was a very bad situation. So first and foremost, I would have done it in a sanitary environment. I would have done it at my house with an alcohol pad and not like an idiot into my quad and bad leg. Um, I wouldn't have used a harpoon like I did. Would have used a slim pin. I would have quote unquote microdosed it. So I would have split it over the course of at least 3 shots, but probably two because 1 cc and 1 cc. And then I would have still started with tests. Um, and I probably would have still started at 350 to 500, I'll say. I might not have started at 500, but what I would do absolutely first, which I never did, which was a terrible idea, was I would start with getting blood work done full panel. I only had pretty much a testosterone score and it was low. So I needed to check that, but I would have gotten like everything done. That way I had that documentation to say, all right, this is what it looked like. Um, and I would have just been consistent with getting the blood work done. I would have started taking things like, curcumin, fish oils, um, vitamin D3, magnesium, vitamin C, just like the super basic cover your bases, astragalus or astragalus, however you say it, things to just cover my bases to make sure I stayed as healthy as possible, going from natural to enhanced. Like I said in the previous statement, I wouldn't have started when I did, because I just didn't have the handle or the concept of like what hard training was, what consistency was. I'll keep it a whole buck with you, right? Saturday dash Sunday, depending on when we quote unquote train legs. Because what I would do is I would go to the gym if I had work on a Saturday. I would walk out of work and I would go to the gym. I would call my boy and I'd say, yo, I'm gonna start. I'll text you if we're on. Be ready. And if I'm not, then just go to my house. Because he knew that my knee couldn't handle certain days. So I would go there, and the first thing I would do is I would grab a barbell and I'd put a plate on it. I'd squat. I'd do two plates. I'd squat. I'd do three plates. I'd squat. And if any of those fell off, day was done. I wasn't doing it. If they felt good, I'd call him before I hit four plates. I'd ask somebody else to spot me. I'd do my four plates. He'd normally be there because he lived around the block as well. And from that point forward, we would run a fuck Saquon, which was pretty much a reverse drop set of leg press, which would be, let's say we started at six plates on a leg press. It was as many reps as you could do until I think it was 15 reps is what we would shoot for. So we would shoot for 15, and then we would add a plate. And we wouldn't rest during this time. It would just be add a plate. Then we would do as many as we could there, normally around 10. And then we would rack it for about 15 seconds. We put eight plates on it. And that's when it would be a force negative. So I would do as many as I could by myself, two, maybe one, maybe. Um, and this is how I know that I didn't really understand failure at that point because like I would be able to recover weight between these. And then he would help me push the thing up, and I would just let it pretty much as slow as possible come back down to my chest, and he would help me bring it back up, and I'd do it for two force negatives, grueling, absolutely horrible reps, and they were high too, like they were not very like press reps. And then from there, we would go to dumbbell RDL or leg extension, normally leg extension to finish out that pump, and then finish with dumbbell RDL. Normally that day, on the way to work, I would get a bagel sandwich. I wouldn't bring any meals with me. I would so the other thing was he worked down the block too, and some Saturdays he would work. So I would order like breakfast for the office because we got to write it off as a T&E for the for enterprise. So I would go there and I'd hang out with him for like 45 minutes and get breakfast for the group. And normally I would get this sweet potato toast that I still dream about. It had sweet potato toast. So like cut a slice of sweet potato, toast it however they toasted it. Hank's almond butter or power butter or whatever it was called. It was like a protein peanut butter, granola, which looking back on it might have just been a Nature Valley oats and honey bar, and then honey and banana. Ooh, that shit was gas, bro. I would eat that while I was at work. I'd eat one slice of it. It would come with two. That was my pre-workout meal. We would train. After that, we would go to he would go back to his, I would go back to mine. Normally, because COVID happened right around March. So this was pre-March, this was pre-February, obviously, yeah, because we would watch college football or the NFL, whatever was on. We would get very high, and then we would eat what was called a Taglia pizza, which was from Federal Pizza Kitchen up in Rhode Island. Not I don't remember where exactly it was, what town it was in. But it was this big ass pizza. We would both get one. We'd be stoned, lying on my couch, absolutely incapacitated from a training session, and just eat this pizza and sooner or later pass out. And then normally I would wake up on Sunday morning, he'd be sleeping on my couch. And I would go into my room at some point and like pass out. And then we would call each other once like, we were settled around like 1 p.m. or whatever, and then we would watch football. So it was a very cool time, but I was not adherent enough to be running PEDs like at all. I literally my entire Saturday was just like a free for all. I did whatever I wanted. And I looked every bit of like I did what I wanted. I looked like shit. It wasn't until I started working with Justin Randall that I kind of reeled that in. And that's when I started to make real progress. And I remember on like New Year's Eve, he wanted to give me a cheat meal. And I was like, I really don't want one. And he was like, no, go out, have a cheat meal. I was like, can I just make protein pancakes? And he was like, you can make real pancakes with real syrup. And I went against what he said. I just made a bigger serving of protein pancakes and added Oreos to it. And not even a lot of Oreos. I remember it was like the Oreo minis, like the little canister of Oreo minis. And I like broke up some of them and put them on top to take a picture to act like I had like real pancakes. So that way he wouldn't get tight of me. But not adherent enough to be doing all that. So that's why I didn't look good. If you want to get in shape fast, what approaches would you use? All right, so let's say I'm going to say fast is like 6 weeks. So I had like 6 weeks to get in shape before the summer. And, I'm trying to fly through this thing. So 6 weeks, let's assume I already know what my maintenance is. My maintenance is somewhere around, 3,000 calories. I'm doing no cardio. I'm doing 10,000 steps a day. So if that's the plan, first thing I'm doing, I'm cutting off 500 calories. Easy. That's going to put me into a position where over 7 days, I'm going to lose about a pound of fat. Cool. Now I'm going to add in cardio. I'm going to add in about 25 minutes of cardio at least 4 times a week. Again, how I gauge cardio is that 25 minutes of cardio is going to be 250 calories. 10 calories per minute. It's a pretty simple math if we turn around and just using rock numbers, right? So that's another 1,000 calories. So now we're at 4,500 calories in a net deficit. Lastly, I'm adding 2,000 steps per day. That's going to give me another 100 calories over those days. That's going to bring me to about 5,200 calorie deficit over the course of a week. That's going to be around about a pound and a half of body fat lost per week. This is an aggressive cut for the fact that we're trying to lose a substantial amount of body fat in 6 weeks. I'm telling you right now, I'm running that for 2 weeks. I'm going to gauge the progress and see if I'm down. I want to be down at that point around about 7 or 8 pounds. Quick. From there, I'm going to take the next jump. I'm going to move my cardio to 6 times a week and I'm going to go to 35 minutes. Again, that is now adding 2 more sessions at 35 minutes, so another 700 calories plus 10 minutes 4 times a week, which is going to be an extra 400 calories. So now we're at 700 plus 400, that's 1,100 more calories from cardio. So now we're at 2,100 calories worth of cardio for the week. I'm taking another 500 calories out of the diet. So that's going to be another pound of fat loss a week. So now we're at 7,000 calorie deficit based off of the original number plus the 2,100. And now I'm also going to add another 2,000 per day for another around about 100 calories. So now we're at 9,100 plus 14. We're at about a 10,500 calorie deficit here, based off of the original numbers. Now we are going to have some adaptive thermogenesis, so it's going to happen, but this is going to rip fat, right? So now we'll run this for another 2 weeks. But at this point, I should be down at least 15 pounds. Generally, I would say about 15 pounds. I don't feel like doing the math on it, but if we're being real, right? 2 weeks in a 10,500 calorie weekly deficit is going to put you just about just about 5.5 pounds of body fat down after losing a pound and a half and a pound and a half. That would be about 3, 8 plus water. Yeah, so right around 15 pounds of actual, weight loss. If we are sitting there, we are 15 pounds down in a matter of 4 weeks. This is where I would actually increase the food from here and probably drop. I would probably keep cardio the same. I'll probably drop my output to where I'm only doing 12,000 steps again, and I'm going to increase the food back up a little. I'm going to bring the food up to about 2250 or 2500 again, because now I want to start to slow that rate of loss. Realistically, by the end of those 2 weeks, I would like to be around 20 pounds down. My training would stay the same. My cardio would stay at that 35 minutes. My steps would be at 12,000. I would likely be around 20 pounds lighter um, in 6 weeks, and I just blitzed body fat off. Now, if I'm in the current state that I'm in, where I'm okay with PED use and enhancements, that number might be substantially higher in terms of the calories coming out because my baseline's higher. My baseline is somewhere around probably maintenance 4,000 calories. I would probably only do 20 minutes of cardio 6 times a week because that's what I would just want to do. And then from there, I would turn around. I'd use Clen, I'd use ephedrine, I'd use some yohimbine. I'd probably use Mont-C. I might use Retta. Um, and shoot, if we're being real, just based off of like where my head currently is, I'd probably use DMP in the first 2 weeks. I would drop my food from the like 4,000 calories to probably about 3,000 calories right off the rip, and I'd be in and out of that fat loss phase in 3 weeks. Done. Nice and easy. I'd run the 2 weeks of the DMP. Um, and that's because in my mini cut before this prep, not the pre-prep phase, but the mini cut I ran around October, it was about 3.5 weeks, and we ripped off around about 16 pounds pretty quickly. Body was super responsive. All we ran was Clen, Motzi, and Retta, and we didn't run Clen high. We ran nothing high. Actually, we just stripped food, and I was doing some hit sessions of cardio and some fasted 35 minutes of cardio, and body fat just ripped off, and it was super, super simple. So that is exactly how I would do it. I would just make it a very quick approach to getting the fat loss off. And then in the last 2 weeks, I would gauge my food up just a little bit, knowing that I'm done with this fat loss phase and it's time to start reversing out, which is a completely different video. Now, last thing, what's one thing I've learned this year that's changed how I think about coaching? I used to be very dogmatic in my approaches. This is how you do this is how you do that. This is what you need to do, especially when it came to training. Now, I am a person who absolutely turns around and says, well, do you feel this? How does this feel when you're doing this? How hard is this actually in the exercise? How much stimulus are you getting over the tissue? Are you feeling the exercise in the intended target? Because if you're not, then we have something to work on here. Whereas when I was different or younger, I would say sensation doesn't matter. You just need to train hard. Well, I'm walking off of that set with a crazy pump. Not everyone's going to feel the same. So now it's more about the feeling, right? There is no right approach because I typically like a lower volume approach for my people. If you are nowhere near failure, giving you a low volume approach is like telling you to go for a walk when I want you to run a marathon. It's not doing shit. And that's simply just thinking about it in terms of where we're at, right? If we need to get the stimulating reps and you're stopping us at 6 reps away from failure, we're going to need a lot more sets to even get close to that proximity of failure. We're going to need a lot more reps to get that muscle to say, oh crap, I need to adapt. So that is something that I 100% have changed my opinion on, changed my mind on. I no longer believe that you need to turn around and do low volume training. Another thing is food. I used to really believe in like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Fill the rest of with carbs and fats. As I've dealt with more people, I've truly found that having a higher protein ratio, fats moderate. By moderate, I mean anywhere from like 40 to 60 grams. And then utilizing carbs as a way to fuel training performance, but not exactly to work those carb numbers up for someone. Like my old diets, let's say I had a 180-pound person, we're going to assume that their calories were somewhere around 2,000, right? So 180 times 4, 720, 2,000 calories minus 720. is 1280. If we say 50 grams of fat, we have 830 calories left. That's going to be about 207 grams of carbs. That works, right? Like that could be an approach, but we could also turn around and just bump that protein number up to 200. We could bump up that, or we could keep those carbs around like 150 and put them just in the pre and post workout window. That's going to be 1400 calories right there. Now we have 600 calories of which to play with from fat, or we can keep it at the 50 grams, and that's going to be 450. Now we have 150 grams or 150 calories of which we can play with for carbs. So 150 times four, or sorry, divided by four, it's going to be 37.5. Now we have 187.5 grams of carbs, 200 grams of protein, and 50 grams of fat. I'm going to make that meal plan for 4 meals, right? We have 200 grams of protein. That's 50 grams of protein per meal. We make that simple. Pre and post workout are going to have the majority of your carbs. We got 187. We're going to make that a nice round number of 180. We'll make a nice round number of 190, right? So that way we have pre, intra, post, probably about 160 grams of our carbs, right? And then 190, we got 30 grams of carbs the rest of the day. We'll have 30 grams of carbs in our post-workout meal or in our pre-bed meal to help with sleep. That way we wake up in the morning, we got, you know, 3 whole eggs, 250 grams of egg whites, and whatever you want pretty much vegetable wise. Maybe even use bacon, like some sort of turkey bacon, some sort of steak, something like a little fattier cut to get that fat up. Because we got 50 grams of fat. We're going to use fat in the first meal, the pre-workout meal, and the pre-bed meal. So pre-bed, we're going to have some fun with this one, right? Like we're going to have non-fat Greek yogurt with scuba whey protein. We're going to have some almond butter and peanut butter, some dark chocolate, right? And then fruit. Just get after it, right? Because we got those 37.5 grams of carbs or 30 grams of carbs to play with there, right? 100 grams of berries is going to be like 10 grams of carbs. I'm not doing that math. I don't really care right now. Um, 100 grams of banana is going to be 20 grams of carbs, right? So we can have some fun with that one. We can make sure that we're utilizing the carbs in a good way that's going to help with sleep. And then our post-workout meal is going to have very little fats. So we get to turn around and we get to utilize those fats in those post-workout meals. And the pre-workout meal, let's say that we're going to do 15 grams of fat for, let's say we're going to do 20 grams of fat in the first meal. We're going to do 10 grams of fat in the second meal. We're going to do 20 grams of fat in the last meal. Those are going to be some pretty substantial numbers. That's 20 grams of almond butter, 20 grams of dark chocolate, or 40 grams of nut butter. Like it's going to be some fun. You're going to enjoy that, right? Like, so that's exactly how I would do. That's what I've like come around on is I think that you can get away with higher protein, and it's just going to be a safer bet to make sure that we're not burning. We're we're not sitting there and putting ourselves in any sort of potential muscle wasting thing. Let's say that we run out of. I would rather overshoot than undershoot it at the end of the day. I think that we're also, if we're going to overshoot protein, we're going to be in better body composition to begin with anyway. So it's just a safer bet. So that's the real reason behind it. Now, with all that said, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this type of video. If you got questions, please drop them down below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun shit. Use the codes 8 weeks out. If this was just absolutely mind numbing, just comment it down below and be like, Josh, you're an idiot. Um, if you stayed until this long, comment Magnum. Yeah, comment Magnum. All right, peace.